Welcome back to our year in review series. This time around, we're touching on the running backs. Start of the year, we had a nice little three-headed duo at the top of the running back room, or expected a three-headed duo at the top of the running back room in Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, and Dante Dowdell. Gabe Irvin was expected to factor in just depending on how much he came off that injury. But kind of, me in preseason kind of felt that Dante Dowdell was the one that would emerge down the stretch of the season as the breakout go-to back. And he had a nice year as Nebraska's short yardage back, but it became pretty obvious by midseason that Emmett Johnson was the best running back on the team, and he really started to surge once Dana Holgorsen joined the staff. Got a lot more run, got a lot more reps, and took full advantage of it. And kind of ends the year now as Nebraska's RB1, gives Nebraska something to something of hope of like, hey, this is our RB1. They have a certified, kind of bell cow type back at the top and some nice depth behind it. Obviously, Dante Dowdell is off to the portal, off to Kentucky. Gabe Irvin off to the portal as well. Ramir Johnson, his Nebraska career is done, and we'll touch into all of that. But Steve, looking back on the year, like with the quarterbacks, in retrospect, maybe an OC change, we were talking about this room completely differently now than we are at this point. But how do you feel about the running back room, all things considered at the end of 2024?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the running back room, I always go back to what I remember Matt Rule saying before the season when he was talking about running backs. He always kind of strives to have smaller, shiftier speed backs in there combined with the bigger bodied guys, the downhill Dante Dowdells of the world. So there, when we're talking about running backs in Nebraska, there's always, I think, when Rule is the head coach, there's always going to be like that mix, that healthy mix of smaller, quick guys, bigger, strong guys. And so I think currently, right now, there's still an element there. Dowdell hitting the portal and going to Kentucky, that sort of hurts the big back type of back just because I think he was really good at what he was asked to do. Now, Dante Dowdell obviously is a certain style of running back, and sometimes he maybe needs to develop in other areas of being a running back, but he rushed for 614 yards. That was a team high. He rushed for 12 touchdowns. He was really good in certain situations, what
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
built for.
think about this. Statistically, he's considered the best short yardage back in college football right now. That's just kind of
Yeah.
the year he
Uh-huh.
had, and a lot of that came off again those 12 touchdowns. So many
Mm-hmm.
of those came inside the 5 yard line where he's just punching it in. But he had a nice year, and
Yeah.
again, I think Nebraska was not happy to lose him. Would have liked to keep him
Mm-hmm.
around, have that 1-2 back punch going.
Mm-hmm.
But getting Emmett back, who also briefly entered the portal, I mean, that's a big deal just because of the way he played, especially towards the back end of the season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And his development under EJ Barthel, I think, has been really kind of notable because Emmett Johnson was a guy a couple seasons ago after his true freshman season where he didn't get much run. I was going on podcasts and writing stories about like he's probably going to enter the portal, he's probably going to go elsewhere. Now look at him. He's shutting me up. He's shutting a lot of people up who didn't really believe in him, but he has really developed. So credit to Emmett Johnson. His elusiveness is really impressive. He finds a way to get yards when they don't look like they're there. We saw that in the Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College, where he left a really good safety and KP Price on his knees tackling air. That was really kind of special. And another kind of element that I really like about Emmett Johnson, he rushed for 598 yards and one touchdown, but he also showed his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. And when your OC is Dana Holgorsen, he has a history of throwing to the running backs too in his system. So I think that is something to keep in mind. Also, Emmett Johnson caught 39 passes for 373 yards. So he can hit you in the run game and the pass game. So I think that's why Holgerson really liked him. And when Emmett Johnson announced that he had planned to enter the portal, he never actually entered. And the program kind of got to him and talked to him and had some conversations. Holgerson said they convinced him to stay. I think he's going to be a big part of the offense next season, obviously. So when you're going through the rest of the running back room right now, as it currently stands for next season, you got Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives, Makai Nelson, Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth. Parker and Booth are members of the 2025 class. And Kenneth Williams, too. Lincoln High product. And before that, he's from Detroit. Originally from Detroit, spent his first 3 seasons of high school football playing in Detroit. Then he moved to Lincoln, played for the Lynx. Maybe he's a return guy, and kind of just a small shiftier back in there whenever Nebraska would need it. But there's not a lot of, I guess, names that jump out at you. Obviously, Nebraska fans know Emmett Johnson. But Quentin Ives, we don't really know a ton about him. He's the big back that was Dante Dowdell's backup. And 6'3", 210 pounds. I wonder how big he's going to be next year if he sticks around. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. I really like Quentin Ives' athletic ability, just his size. I told you this before, Tim. He doesn't look like the other running backs in that room, just for how tall he is and how big he is. But then Mekhi Nelson, more about Mekhi than I do, Tim, so you can talk about him. But I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if Nebraska might hit the portal and try to get some visits from some running backs too. I mean, maybe I'm off on that. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they test the waters just for that big body
Yeah,
back. Like
yeah,
Dowdle was so effective this year, and they're kind of
hmm
looking for that. And Ives could hypothetically be that down the line, but he's been a developmental prospect.
yes.
And we're on
He's
year
he's so
entering year
he's so
three of that.
raw. He's so
Yeah, like
raw.
played receiver in high school, legit 6'3", 210. And every time we've seen him, he's been in the return game. We've seen him a bit in practice. I still think just for his size, he runs a little high. And
hmm
that's something that I
Yeah.
think the staff's going to work with and get to. But you can't be the short yardage back when you're running high. You can't be entering these tight situations way up high. It's not a recipe for success.
hmm
So I think that's something they're going to work with him on. I do believe, a Connor Booth. I don't know if he's ready in year one, but I think
hmm
Connor fits what they're looking for in terms of that short yardage back with some, potential explosive ability as well. Jamarian Parker, we'll just see. He's a guy that I think that they say he's coming in right around 200, which is bigger than I expected. The big thing
Yeah.
with him is just going to be weight because he's the
Yep.
guy in that room that has the home run hitting speed.
hmm
But it's ultimately it's going to be how big can he get before his freshman season. If he can clear 200 and get to 210, 215 ish, I think you potentially see him on the field as a freshman. Just because I think he's too electric to leave off the field. I think he gives them something out of the backfield that they're going to lose in Ramir Johnson, that smaller, shiftier back. Emmett's a good mix of that guy that
Yeah.
can run in short yardage situations, but has that
hmm
shiftiness to him. But if you're looking for a guy that can legit hit home runs and make guys miss in space, that's Jamarian Parker. And yeah, like I said on Booth, man, don't sleep on him just because I
No.
know the level of competition he played wasn't ideal at Nebraska, but those statistics he put up, I mean, it's just and the step he took specifically as a senior I really like the vision. I really like his ability to just plant and go. He does so much well, and I just think there's a world where he contributes at Nebraska. I definitely see a world where he contributes early at Nebraska too. And
Yeah.
touching on
And
Mekhi Nelson, go ahead.
one more thing on Booth. The speed I believe will be there. He is also going to play baseball for Will Bolt and the Nebraska baseball team. He's a center fielder for his baseball career earlier. So he is, and there are numbers out there. There are testing numbers out there that Connor Booth that are really impressive for his size. And I believe he'll come to Nebraska at a little over 210 pounds, maybe even 220, something around there.
Oh,
But he
he's
was a
close to 220 right now. He's big. He's a
yeah.
big, big
Okay.
kid.
There you
Yeah,
go. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And center fielder on the baseball field, so he covers a lot of ground out there. He's just a big athlete that a lot of people kind of forget about, and I understand. And he's always going to have that narrative behind him of playing small school football in Nebraska at Bishop Newman High School. So and that's something that I think drives him. Talking to him over the phone and talk to him about his recruitment and his football seasons, I just think that he's in there. He knows what he can do. He knows what he's capable of. And a lot of people are just going to look at him like, oh, small town school. He's not gonna do anything much. I don't know. I'm with you, Tim. I'm really intrigued by Connor Booth and what he can eventually turn into, develop into. Like you said, I'm not so sure true freshman season if we're going to see a breakout year from Connor Booth, but he's one down the road to keep an eye on for sure.
for sure. And yeah, again, Mekhi Nelson, another one I wouldn't sleep on either, just because he was a late add
hmm
to the 2024 class, came in over the summer after a good performance in the June camps. A guy that is earned some waves and made some waves, since Dana Holgerson's arrived just in practice. Again, another like kind of Emmett Johnson type has that mix of can run through some
Yeah.
tackles and run between or run through contact, but has that home run hitting speed a little bit as well. Where in the open field he can kind of separate and go. Again, not as fast as Jamarian Parker. I don't even think he's as fast as Emmett Johnson really, but he has a good balance back that I think is going to step into a bigger role next year. Kind of maybe just because he has to, just because of where the room is right now. Yeah, I wonder if they make another addition through the transfer portal. Again, it's
Yep.
you're in a tough situation because you're
Hmm.
essentially having to sell a back on playing a role. When most backs that enter the portal are looking for more playing time or looking for
Hmm.
just a jump up in competition. And I don't think Nebraska can promise an RB run one role to anybody. Like last year, when they brought Dante in, it was kind of, hey, we need a
Yeah.
back, and it
Hmm.
was an opportunity for more playing time. I don't know where they can find that in the portal at this point because you've got Emmett at the top and you have those young backs coming in, and yeah, I'm interested to see what Nebraska does there. How do we feel about EJ Barthel at this point? It seems like he's in line for a contract extension, going to be around. Has done a good job on the recruiting trail beyond the running back position. He's done a good job in the Midwest. He's got Nebraska established out in Ohio. He's a big reason for some of the Ohio presence Nebraska has right now. St. Louis as well. He's been a big factor there. He's done a good job on the trail. The loss of Kawan Lacey last year kind of looms, and he was able to close strong and hold on to Jamarian Parker and hold on
Yeah.
to Connor Booth, and again, I
Hmm.
think he doesn't get enough credit for the developmental job he did because you and I
Yeah.
noticed this year, Emmett Johnson and Amir Johnson
Nobody,
specifically.
nobody's talking about nobody's talking about EJ Barthel and his job developing Emmett Johnson. I mean, you can just like as a fan, you can look at Emmett Johnson and be like, man, that guy just got good all of a sudden. But like, he does have a position coach
Yeah,
who's been
and you
working
can,
with him.
yeah,
Nobody
and I
mentions
remember
it though.
people.
Nobody mentions it.
Right, because people kind of quietly dismiss the Emma Johnson like emergence as, oh, he's just getting more reps. It's more than that. He didn't run like this last year. He didn't run
No.
like this even earlier this season. Like
Mm-mm.
the making people miss in a phone booth, holding on to the
Mm-hmm.
football, all of that, like that is improved. And under at Nebraska, he had that fumble in the Pinstripe Bowl. The weather
Yes.
weather did help. It was a high low tackle. But turnovers weren't a problem for the running back room this year, and it has been in
Mm-mm.
years past.
Yeah, and Dante Dowell had that early one at UTEP inside the 5 yard line, so that wasn't great. But after that, I think he was pretty clean. I don't remember really another
He had
ball
one
carrying
other,
issue.
I forget which game it was in, but he had one other
It,
this year.
they weren't glaring though, like they
Yes,
were the
correct.
first season. So I don't know when we're talking about EJ Barthel. I know some in the fan base weren't too high on him after the first season, but I think that he's sort of kind of found his rhythm at Nebraska, and he's starting to get things cooking in recruiting. I really love that he kind of got Jamarian Parker, but then held on to Jamarian Parker because I know a lot of programs would have liked to have that kid in their recruiting class too. So that was I think a kind of a big thing that again not a lot of people are talking about, but I think it is kind of a big moment for Barthel to keep a talent like a talent like Parker in the recruiting class. So and last year, he when Dante Dowdell entered the portal at a Oregon, I talked to some people in the know and wrote a story on why Dowdell picked Nebraska, and it was because they really liked what Barthel his development skills and his relationship building skills. The Oregon running back coach Tim helped me out. He's at Ohio State right
Oh,
now.
Carlos Loughlin.
Yeah, Carlos Loughlin. He was very high on EJ Barthel. So when you have somebody like Carlos Loughlin kind of saying that about yourself, I think that says something about EJ Barthel. That he's a pretty good running back coach, a developer, relationship builder. So I think I don't know. I'm high on Barthel. I'm higher than others on Barthel, I guess.
For sure. And it seems like he's in line to return in 2025, and he's got his work cut out for him in the 2026 class where Nebraska's involved with some of the best backs in the country, including, one right down the road and Dzef Walker out of Raypeck in Missouri, another Kansas City area product. Nebraska's trying to land one that would be, again, a kind of a game changer in that running back room. So, again, I don't think the book's written on EJ Bartel's career just yet, at least at Nebraska. And so I'm interested to see kind of what he does this year because again, he's got his work cut out for him just on the field in terms of establishing depth behind Emmett Johnson and getting these guys ready to play, but also on the recruiting trail. So we'll see what happens. I think
Hmm.
overall, though, again, running back room, you like what you saw overall for the course of the year. Sucks to lose Dante Dowell, no doubt. I think that
Yep.
that stings a
It's
lot.
a loss. It's a
It's a
loss.
loss. It's
Hmm.
tough. And again, if you want to, we talked, we giving Bartell the credit for landing him.
Hmm.
At the end of the same time, there wasn't much he could really do in terms of keeping him around because it was
No.
one of those, you can kind of read between the lines here. He entered and kind of committed before making a visit, which kind of tells you,
Rule
uh,
said what happened.
yeah. I mean,
And so
yeah.
it's a whole new world with
Yeah,
NIL and
and it's
everything, and there's
happening
only
all
so
over.
much you
Again,
can do.
it's kind
Yes,
of
yes.
happening all over. But and obviously, Nebraska's not isn't a victim here because they're doing it themselves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, hey, you lost Dante because a school in the SEC came through and kind of tapped back channel a little bit and tried to
Hmm.
get him away and got him away. So again, and Nebraska couldn't really make promises to Dante this year with the emergence of Emma
Hmm.
Johnson and it would have been a two back situation if Dante came back. Now Emmett's RB1, firm, established, concrete number one. And this spring we're gonna have to watch that battle between Mekhi Nelson, Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth, uh,
Hmm.
Quentin Ives, and so on and so forth, just to figure out who that second and third back in that rotation is going to be because we know Nebraska likes to rotate. We just have to figure out
Yeah.
who those guys are going to be, and who knows? Like we said, portal's still open in terms of
Yep.
just there are guys in the portal right now they could evaluate. We're going to get a
Hmm.
spring transfer window as well, a brief one
Hmm.
that Nebraska's going to have an opportunity to evaluate, and that'll probably like decide the room. I think is how they
Yeah.
feel in spring. Will ultimately decide how aggressive they are in that spring window for potentially adding another back to the room. Steve, before we get out of here, I know we're going to do receivers next, and we're going to go position by position here. So stay tuned over to the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel for that. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel. Steve, before we get out of here, any final thoughts on the running backs?
No, I'm just excited to see how it plays out. Right now, it looks okay. It looks okay to me. There's not a lot of just eye-catching names out there, but Emmett Johnson, he's solid. He continues to get better every single game he plays. It feels like there's just not a lot of known commodities behind him with Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, Jamarian Parker, Connor Booth, both haven't played college football yet. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks. But I for some reason I just feel okay about it. And like you said, the transfer portal is going to have another opening here. Transfers are likely going to visit. I expect some transfer running backs to visit. I'll just say it. I expect it. I'd be surprised if nobody came through to check Nebraska out. So yeah, I'm okay with Nebraska's running back room as of right now.
For sure. Feel a lot better, I think, with the play of Emmett Johnson the last 3, 4 weeks
Yep.
specifically of the season.
Yep.
Like I think that should have the fan base and should have the program feeling confident in the room moving forward because again, you have versatility as well. Something we're not really
Yeah.
talking about with this room either is you have a Jaden Doss that can play some running back because he did that in high school. You have an Isaiah
Hmm.
Mosey who's joining the
Hmm.
program that also played some running back. And a name we didn't really touch on. I know we said we're going to get out of here, but I guess we'll end on this. A name we didn't really touch on. Where does Isaac Dickey fit into all of this? The fullback, walk on from Elkhorn, or walk on from Nebraska, from the state of Nebraska, but a guy
Hmm.
that is he the short yardage back? Is that the temporary solution for that short yardage back situation? Is just a big fullback essentially?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just straight up fullback might be in his future with Isaac Dickey, but yeah, you never know with this staff. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of know Isaac. I covered him a little bit in high school out in Cross County, Stromsburg, Nebraska. Shout out to those guys. But yeah, talk about a guy that's all in. Isaac Dickey is all in. Isaac Dickey has always wanted to be a Husker. He wanted to play college football at Nebraska for as long as I can remember. He's a really good interview to talk to. Great kid, great family. Yeah, I really like Isaac Dickey, and I think somebody like Matt Rule and EJ Barthel is going to see the passion that kid has for wanting to play at Nebraska, and he might be somebody who survives the cuts and is a member of that 105 man roster coming up.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to figure out a role for him. And again, if they lose him,
Sure.
it's not going to be because he doesn't want to be here. It's ultimately
Oh
going to be
yeah,
because of
absolutely.
cuts. But that kid wants to
Mm.
be here, and I kind of trust Rule. And even with the schematic changes underway with Dana Holgorsen at the helm, I expect Matt Rule and EJ Bartel can see the value in keeping a guy like that around.
Hmm.
That'll probably do it for us here with the running back year in review. We'll be back with the receiver episode here soon. So stay locked in over to the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel, InsideNebraska.com as well for all the latest news and intel. And we'll be back next time.